You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, Shelley Rosland.
Welcome to the show where we delve into where your brand meets your humans that you serve. My mission is to lift up micro businesses so that more people can find them, work with them, and be transformed by their genius. Hello, I am Shelley Rosland, and I am a systems-led brand strategist, and I'm here and pleased to welcome to one of those geniuses onto the show today, and that is Alison O'Leary.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! So Ali and I are going to dig into a topic that every micro business owner, and particularly a knowledge worker, tackles when they first jump off that employment ship. And that really is, who am I if I'm not actually doing that job? What am I really good at? And actually, more importantly, what will people pay me for? Which is a huge topic, right, Ali?
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to have a go, but luckily I have a very superb conversation companion today. So let me introduce you quickly to Ali so you know who she is. She's a certified life and career coach specializing in career change to facilitate life change, and is an ideal life advocate. Lots of change and lots of life in there, right?
Yeah.
So she's the founder and designer of the Work Wonderland process, her proprietary way of helping people to place their unique strengths, yes,
Yeah,
gifts
figure it out
and passions.
Figure out the right career path.
Correct. So place their unique strengths, gifts, and passions at the heart of their decision making and planning, which I absolutely love. So I met Ali more than probably 20 years ago, which I'm going to try and just kind of swiftly move on from there. At the beginning of her London corporate career, and she was working in the communications and marcoms industry. She's always been one of those really, really bright lights for me. A positive human with a talent for connecting with people, and she runs her own micro business today, which gives us perfect context and perspective for today's conversation. Welcome, Ali.
Thank you very much for that wondrous intro.
There we go. So I wanted to keep this fairly relaxed because we had a brilliant conversation about this the other day. So we're going to try and refashion that. So shall we just kick off by asking you a little bit more about how you came to start your own business after leaving employment? Because I reckon that's a really good way to start to unpeel the conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I spent 20 years doing PR and comms for technology companies. And in the last kind of 10 years of that, really knew that that was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But was kind of stuck on what it was what on earth would I do if I wasn't doing that? So I actually hired a coach myself to help me figure it out. And work out that coaching was the thing I wanted to do. And so I did my training and got qualified, and then started to build my business up in the background. So it was an incremental kind of transformation over a period of 4 years, where I eventually built up what I was doing in the background, then went part-time with my current role, and then moved into doing this full-time, and I've been doing that now for quite a number of years.
Gosh, okay. So it's a common story, and not all of us actually manage to do that balance of that transition, right? To try and do a bit of it while we're in employment. I mean, I left employment quite burnt out, and I think I did struggle with what am I good at, because I didn't necessarily have great managers or leaders that helped me identify that. So I didn't really know as soon as I went unemployed what it is that people would pay me for. So I know you deal with similar kind of questions for your clients. So how do you help them to just navigate that bit about trying to identify their strengths?
So specifically with strengths, and you're absolutely right, like people just, and I was the same, you just don't really know where your value lies, or what it is that you could do that people would pay you money for. Exactly. So with my clients, I actually use a system called Clifton Strengths, which is it's a methodology that was developed by Gallup, the international research firm. And they interviewed over 2 million people who were at the top of their game in every kind of job role and industry you can imagine, to try and identify what it was that was making those people so successful and happy in their roles. And when happy being key, right? So when they boiled down all of the data from that big body of research, they determined that there are 34 strengths that any one person might have. And it's not
Oh,
really
good
pat
grief.
stuff. It doesn't come back and go, you're really good at being organized and you're good at logistics. It's much deeper than that. And it's based on how you
Nice.
intuitively interact with people, with data, and just kind of with the world at large. And they've developed an online assessment off the back of the research that takes about half an hour to do. And it tells you what your top 5 strengths are. So I get my clients to take this assessment and send me their results, and then we go through them in detail to really look at what do they really mean, how do they play out for them, and how can they utilize them? What does it point to in terms of
Yeah.
career paths and specific types of roles? Because what Gallup found through their research was that all these highly successful, happy people were all using their top 5 strengths every single day in the work they were doing.
See, now this is the bit I want to dig into now because we alluded to this a little bit before when we've had other discussions about the link here between strengths, value,
Yeah.
and so you mainly work with people who are employed
Yeah.
people, quite driven employed people, but I work a lot with people that are self-employed who've started up their businesses like you and me.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in that link between the strengths and the value and that marketable value and obviously as an employed person, you get paid a salary.
Yeah.
So there is a marketable value, but how would you swing that round for someone running a micro business?
So it's all about, ultimately to be successful, with your own business, you need to tap into what it is you do innately. And it tends to be things that we don't really value because you're good at them, right? You're good at them. So you tend to think, well, surely everybody can do that. And that's not a thing.
Ooh, and that's the key.
Yeah, but if
That's
you can
the key.
identify what those things are and build not just your proposition around that, whatever your offer is, whatever it is you're doing for clients or customers, but also build your own marketing and and promotion around your skill set. So, and what I mean by that is, so for example, for me, obviously a lot of my strengths sit in the people category because it's what I love. I kind of innately do it, and it's great, but what it meant from a business point of view and from a marketing point of view was that I needed to tap into my network to help me promote my brand, utilize the relationships, the really deep relationships I've built with people over the course of time, and I have people running a huge referral program for me, for example, because again, it's all about that relationship building and people skill. So, not for me tweeting every day. So I adapt my marketing to suit my own skill set and the things that I'm naturally good at. So from a business building as well as what you do for clients, it's using the same capabilities.
I think the bit that I'd like to unpick a bit is, and I have found this so I qualify myself as a knowledge worker. I don't know if have you heard of that term? Yeah. So I really struggled when I first went self-employed, is that I didn't create a product, a thing that you can look at on the shelf and you can look at the good old-fashioned USPs of it and start to try and sell something, right? So eventually found this label of knowledge work, and I thought, oh, right, okay, it's my brain. So like my brain is my asset. But the challenge for knowledge workers is to take those intangible strengths, if you like, and then put that into something that is fashioned into some kind of service or some kind of advice or consultancy or coaching or mentoring, whatever it might be, that somebody else will buy, right? So how do you make that leap from, and I mean, I know a little bit about how I've tried to work with clients myself in terms of trying to go, okay, just walk me through your day then. Tell me, like, when somebody is new and you start working with them, what do you do? And then those bits that they go, oh, well, what I do is I spend inordinate amounts of hours doing da-da-da-da. I was like, oh, right. So do you price that time?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you help people then to try and, work out that value and then what that actually ends up translating into in terms of talents and skills? That's marketable value.
So there's there's a general framework that I take people through that builds a really clear...
Sorry, a lead on from your 5 strengths.
Yeah. So that's it. So there's a framework
Okay.
I take people through. So strengths is one of the pieces, but I do a piece of work with people around their personal values. So the ways in which they need to live and work in order to be happy. I do a piece around their personality profiling, because you're a human being. You bring yourself to your work as well as, your skills and abilities. So we look at what that technically says and means about what you deliver, or what you might package up, or how you might produce what you're going to do. We do a piece around passions to make sure that, what are the things that really light you up, that make you feel good, that energize you, because those are going to be things that are going to have real value. And we look at transferable skills. So of all of the skills you've built up over the course of your career and personal life, what are the things you're naturally good at and you know how to do and you enjoy? And we package all of that stuff together and start to then look at, well, what does that really mean from, so if somebody is then looking at self-employment, we pull all of those pieces together to help them start to break down, what does a service look like? What would a value proposition look like? And what do you do naturally as part of that potential process? And part of it is about trial and error. It's about testing things out and having a go to see what works and what doesn't. And I think a lot of...
And also asking, isn't it? It's asking also, if you do have at least a couple of clients, asking them, speaking to them, getting feedback.
Absolutely. I get a lot of my clients who are at that very beginning kind of journey of starting, as self-employed and starting their own businesses, to run pilot programs, and with whether they do it for free or they do it to get case studies or they do it just to learn about what works for them as well as the client, and then to get feedback through that process on what was good, what could have been done differently and better, so that you can really start to shape out whatever your proposition is. And then you've got people that you've got case studies that back it up, that enable you to then pitch it out.
I think that testing process is really important though, because I kind of found, just for myself in designing and launching my own program, was that you can only set out with, in the beginning, what you think is
an idea. Absolutely.
And then actually getting the feedback of, how it was for other people. It wasn't necessarily around the content per se, but it was around how people assimilated it, digested it, what they got out of it for themselves as well. And I think that was very useful information to get, because almost you then re-engineer
absolutely
how you say things.
Totally right. That's exactly what I did. When I started, once I'd qualified, I did a lot of stuff for free to just try and find my feet and get a sense of what was going to work. And I at that time I didn't know that I was going to create this very clear framework and process to help people get from no idea what it is I want to do to I'm really clear about what the right path is. I didn't know, so I was testing and trialing different things, different techniques, different assessments, different tools, and then getting their feedback, like you said, getting their perspective on what they took away from it, how I could enhance it, so that over time, I was molding it and evolving it, through all of the learnings until I've got, until it became a very, very clear set of steps, and a package that I now sell to people.
And also it's easier to talk about. It's easier to sell. It's easier to market. How did you get over, and did you have this issue, how did you get over the two big P's, perfectionism and procrastination? I mean, were those anything that you dealt with at all?
For me, I like perfectionism didn't really come into. I don't really struggle with that. I guess I'm more of just a kind of like just have a go.
What is that like?
Procrastination was hard because at the beginning when you're trying stuff, you don't know what's going to work. You don't, so you're doing a lot of stuff, and I did, and you're sort of, it's a bit like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, and a lot of it doesn't stick, and and so there's a lot of quiet time where you just, and it's very easy to just go, oh, it's just not working. It's not working. And then, and just become paralyzed by it. And I always encourage my clients to do this. I've got a really good set of coaches that I trained with that we maintained contact, and we meet every couple of weeks. Oh yeah,
what do you call them? I love the name.
A brain
trust,
right?
Trust.
Where we meet every week or every couple of weeks, and we share ideas and best practice and what's working and what's not, and we help each other, and we come up with ideas for one another. And that, in the quiet times when it just felt like, oh my God, this isn't going to work and it's gonna fail.
Tumbleweed.
Got you over it. People have thrown, and just even if it's just like from a cheerleading perspective, cheer you on to trying the next thing. And it's really important because it can feel very lonely being out on your own. If you come from, a corporate environment where, you've been part of a team and you've got a clear job spec and you know what you're doing, to, I'm sort of, in part making it up. I'm having a good go. So
Is there a point you think where the testing ends? I mean, do you have a a line that you draw where you go, actually, I've sharpened this up enough? Because there's a point, isn't there, where you think you can't keep changing things.
Absolutely. It's when it works. It's when it works. It's when it works, when people buy it, when they get real value out of it, and you deliver on the promise. And at that point, like, I'm sure you're the same, most entrepreneurs, you're on to the next thing. You've got ideas for other programs, new things you want to try. So you're building out.
I cannot sleep, Ali. I cannot sleep.
You're building out. I've always got something else on the go that I'm testing, trialing, playing with, because
I'm almost scared to shower. Like if you go shower, you're like, no, you're going to leave me alone too long, and
yeah,
I'm going to come out with my head exploding. It's not relaxing at all. Oh God. So yeah, I mean, I think there is that element of, I think I'd actually heard an interview the other day which really like resonated with me, and it was almost like you need to be prolific about speaking, talking, testing, in order to get to perfection, because perfection doesn't start from day one.
Absolutely. And I've got a little, in fact, it's written on my board up there: progress, not perfection. It is just about learning.
Nice.
So, yeah. It's a little reminder that it's just about continuing to learn and utilize those learnings and feed them back into the loop, so that you're then adapting all of the time until you get, until you eventually, you will, if you keep going, you'll get to a final product and something that really works, and then you start the process again with the next thing that you're interested in having a go at or building out.
Do you, I'm just having a quick think now, like what's an easy win for someone to realize what a strength is, where they don't realize it's their strength and therefore is a value? Like what's a really quick like red flag for you to go, whoa, hang on, that's actually one of your strengths and you should actually be charging for that?
Well, I mean, it's different for different people. I mean, if I'm working with them, it's quite, because I'm innately fascinated by people.
Yeah, and you're diagnosing,
right? I can see it, right? And the way they talk, I ask them questions, and the way it's always about the energy. It's about the energy of somebody.
But if someone's listening now and thinks, well, how do I know if there's something that I'm good at that I'm not charging for? Like, what?
Ask people you trust what it is they think you do or that you're good at. To poll people, because you might be surprised by the answers, because people and again, like I said, because it's innate, you tend not to value it or be able to it's hard to pinpoint yourself, but other people see it, and it's obvious to others. Like with a lot of the clients I do this strength stuff with, afterwards they'll go and talk to a spouse or a partner or a friend about what's come up, and their friend will go, well, yeah,
that's obvious. Yeah. To everyone except
you. Yeah. So, if you're really stuck, the quickest and easiest thing to do is poll people who know you.
I think another red flag for me would be like where you're doing something and time just disappears.
Yeah.
And it's like before you know it, a couple of hours have passed. It might be that you're actually doing it for a client, or you're on a call with a client or something like that, where you come off and you feel like, oh, wow, that went really well.
Yeah.
There's something really as simple as that.
You're absolutely right. It's one of the questions I ask in one of the exercises I run with people is what makes you lose time? Because it's always about, and another one is like, where do you get your energy from? What things light you up and energize, and I can tell when I'm talking to people, and we're about specific things, because they come alive suddenly. They're they're animated and they're full of energy, and they're talking about things that just like suddenly it's sort of.
I just had a vision of those, like, well, it might be an American thing because I don't think we really have them in the UK, but the used car dealerships that have the big blow up characters. And like when the air is out, they're all floppy, and then all of a sudden,
and that's it. But that's what we're like as human beings, right? And so it's like, what energizes you? Follow the thread of your own energy, because those things you're going to be good at and you're going to enjoy.
Yeah, Definitely. And I would say also, I mean, you've created your own proprietary way, right? But you only came to that by, again,
Yeah,
test fail,
absolutely.
feedback loop, right? And I think that's the only other additional thing I'd say to somebody listening today. It's not just about where you're losing time. It's also watch yourself. There's a particular way that in which you are doing things. There's actually value in the exact way that you're
Yeah,
doing things. And there's a way to formalize that as value as
absolutely.
well.
Absolutely.
So you've been going since like what, 2014? Is that the official date?
Well, yeah, I
Right?
mean, that's when I started, when I qualified and I started building things up in the background. Yeah.
For the coaching, right? So like you really beautifully communicate now what you do, who you do it for, and how you impact
Yeah.
change for your clients. But well, quite clearly that's not the way it was from day one. So if you
No.
if you had to time travel and go back to early days Ali, like what would you actually say to help Ali in those early days?
Well, and honestly, it was what I had. I mean, my original website, it was vague and it was just, yeah, there was no clarity whatsoever in what I was doing because I wasn't clear, so it wasn't easy
No,
to then
exactly.
articulate what it was I was doing.
But everybody's like really set on having a
Oh
website,
yeah,
right? They
yeah,
don't know
yeah. Because
what
you've
the
got to
heck to
start
put on it.
somewhere, right? You do, and you do your best. But God, it was awful. um, but there's three things I would tell myself probably going back.
Okay.
Three things to know. Like the first was, and I got this piece of advice after I'd been going for a year trying to build it up. In that whole try fail system. And I
Yeah.
spoke to a woman who had successfully built a coaching business 3 times over from scratch in 3 different countries. And
Oh my
I
God.
know. And so
Yeah.
I spoke to her about what she was doing and how she was doing it. And she said to me, and this was the most valuable piece of advice, Alison, it takes 2 to 3 years minimum to build a business. And she said, it doesn't matter who
Yes.
you are. It doesn't matter whether you've got loads of backing and funding or like whatever your proposition is. It takes because that's just what it takes. And that for me gave me a huge amount of relief because I was like, well, of course, it's common sense, of course, but that's not how I was applying. I was feeling like I should be up and running within 9 months and it should, be all singing, all dancing,
Why
and
am I not
like, why is
successful?
it not
Everybody
working
told
yet?
me I
And
make
things.
millions.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
of course it just doesn't because you have to go through that trial and error process, and it's the only way you learn, and it's odd, but knowing that, as soon as she said that to me, I was like, right. Let's reframe the timeline and my expectations. Keep doing what I'm doing, but just not ladle all of this insane
Release the pressure
pressure.
a little
Yeah,
bit.
which just eased it up, made it feel easier and better. So I would definitely tell myself that. I would
Nine. Number
definitely
two.
advise myself to, market in a way that's true for you. Because, and I think it's true for a lot of people when they start out. You feel like you read, there are all sorts of advice. People often telling you've got to do X, Y, Z. You must blog every day. You must tweet. You must be on Instagram. You must do 100 things. You've got to be out at networking events. And you can't do it all. And it's really easy to get to, and I did, totally overwhelmed and lost. And then like, oh,
Yes.
now I don't know what to do, where to go. And the truth is, and I do this with my clients now, focus on few things that tap into what you like, what you're good at, and where your value lies to market, because you're going to be much more successful. You're going to enjoy it a whole lot more, So if social media isn't for you, for example, don't make that the priority. Find another way. So I would definitely tell that to myself, because I tried all sorts of stuff and tried to make myself do things that I hated, that were a waste of time and energy, but I felt like I should be doing them because that was what you did in order
Because
to
people telling
build
you
a
to.
business. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Good
probably
one.
the third thing, as we've already talked about it, is make sure you've got a cheerleading squad, that brain trust, that, like a connect. It can be one person or a group of people, but a support network, because, that can help you, cheer you on when things are good as well as when things aren't, and you can bounce ideas off of, because otherwise you're operating in a vacuum, and it's really easy to get disheartened,
For
and it's
sure.
easy to just get lost.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think what's better today, I don't know if you'll agree, is there are so many more people now that
Yeah.
are running their own businesses, that actually it's much easier now to get yourself a network, to find yourself those close people to support you. Because in my early days, it was just really, and also because I think of the subject, or not the subject, but the structure of what I was trying to do business model wise. Back in 2007, the UK was not ready for.
Yeah.
Nobody understood it. I couldn't find suppliers to help me. I had to go to the US to get people to just hear me and like, oh yeah, landing page. I know what that is. I can help you. So I think today for people, it's also, and even just being an entrepreneur and also knowing that life is, it's not even, there's not a set paycheck, things go up and down and you need to learn how to manage the up and down. I think having those brain trusts or people around you that get it, I think it makes a huge amount of difference to you succeeding.
It really does. It really does. And contact people who can, who've got contacts in the right things that as your business grows, can help support.
Yeah.
So,
and that's again bringing it back to what are your strengths, but also not just your strengths. What's the strengths in what you've built over time as well? Like you're saying with your networks, if you've spent quite a bit of time building those connections, it's not necessarily your brain and your head, but that's one of your skills and strengths. But your strength now lies in that circle of people that you've pulled together, and there's value in that too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's where my business was built. Without that network, but and I hadn't thought about it when I was in my old corporate role, but I did. I
No, you don't.
You
don't.
No, but that network were they became coach clients for me. They recommended me. They told people about what I was doing, and so that started in the early days where my business came from.
That validated your credibility and your value.
Yeah.
No, brilliant. So anybody listening, just remember whatever context you're making at the moment in your employed roles, that is going to be valuable for you should you ever leave that job, for one, or two, go and set up your own business as well. So God, I've had so much fun chatting to you. I mean, I could keep talking, but we should probably save it for another episode. But if someone is listening today and wanted to learn a little bit more about you, Ali, what is the best way to do? Obviously not a huge amount of social media.
I got somebody doing it for me. That's how I got around that in the end.
Hey. But you see, that comes with growth. That comes with growth.
Absolutely. Just about. My website, livetrue.co.uk. Everything's on there. All of the stuff that I do.
Nice. The little bit we didn't actually get into though, Ali, was that whole ideal life advocate. That was a phrase that really.
Yeah.
What's that all about, Ali? Quickly tell me that before we close.
Part of my own journey, so I help people with career change because that's what I did myself, right? So I'm my own case study. But as part of that, it wasn't just about the work, and I think most people who want to, run their own businesses, there's a lifestyle element to it, right? It's not just about the type of work you're doing, it's about the type of life you want to lead. And for me, and for pretty much all the clients I work with, I just was desperate for more space and more time for myself, for my friends and family, and just I wanted to live in a totally different way. And so what I do with my own clients, as I do with myself, is factor that stuff in. So it's not, so that because you can. At the end of the day, it's about living a great life, right? Whatever it is you're doing, whatever type of work, and so making sure that those lifestyle factors are included, whatever is important to you. For me, it meant I moved from the centre of London, from Covent Garden, to a mountainside in Wales, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by sheep. People thought at the time I thought I was mad, and I love it. Because I value silence and peace, and so as part of that process, it was just about how do I facilitate my ideal life as part of this. So that's what I'm an advocate for, and I make sure that people that I work with think about too, so that it's tied together.
Just lovely. Thank you so much for joining me, Ali. It's been honestly a joy talking to you.
Thank you for
keep doing what you're doing. Your genius is much needed in our very complicated, choice-rich world that we're living in today. Thank you so much. And that's it for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for choosing to listen to us today. And I reckon this is really a topic to bookmark, to share it with somebody that you care about who may be struggling with their topic, because everybody has at some point in their journey. But until next time, stay strong, believe you have value, and make good brand decisions. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at shellyrosland.com.